Áno, ďakujem veľmi pekne a ja preskočím do angličtiny, pretože to bude jeden z dvoch anglicky hovoriacich hostí, so I'll definitely switch to English, and with this, obviously, I'm going to introduce Anthony Salcito, who is the Vice President for Education Worldwide in Microsoft, and Anthony is giving us both the inspiration from what is really going on in other countries and other regions, and even more important, how the future of education could look like in the future. So with this, I'm handing over to Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be with all of you here virtually. First, I want to wish you all the great health, both physically and mentally. During this unprecedented time, and indeed going forward, it's important for leaders to establish the right mindset about the changes that are going on. Mindset is going to be critical to create energy in our schools as we prepare for reopen, as well as keeping students and parents and educators strong and healthy and focused in this time. Microsoft has been working around the world, and one of the realities is we've certainly recognized the rise of digital transformation. That hasn't come at the expense of the role of educators and the importance of the human connections that we have every day. In fact, in a time where technology is being used more for digital learning than ever before in human history, the role of teachers is now incredibly respected because parents can see what's happening every day in classrooms right now on their kitchen tables. And hopefully we'll retain some amazing things from these learnings and lessons over the last few months that will bring into schools for the future of learning. I have to say there has been some heroic efforts on the part of educators and leaders to not only cope with the transition to remote learning and in response to COVID, but really embracing the opportunity to extend learning beyond the classroom. For decades, technology's role has been serving the existing structure of learning, serving classrooms, automating things that we used to do in the past with paper and books and physical engagement in environments. But little information and focus has been pushed to thinking about technology to extend, amplify, and different learning opportunities available for students. What we think will happen and should happen as we go forward is institutions will embrace the opportunity to take the amazing lessons over these last few months and rethink the structure, focus, and the impact of schools both in and out of the classroom. We think educators will now be emboldened to embrace technology more actively because they've seen and witnessed that the rise of technology does not eliminate or diminish their role. And they'll embrace an opportunity to bring blended, asynchronous, and personalized learning environments both in and out of the classroom. As students and educators get more comfortable with the work that's happened in COVID, we understand that the ability to just go back to school the old way would be a step backwards. We have to think about how we can take the models and apply them to change what's going on in the classroom going forward. Using our time together in a more personal, more collaborative, more project-based, maybe storytelling, ways in which where our joy, our emotions, our proximity can be leveraged smartly, and then use digital tools to enhance what can be valued and the application of our ability to stay connected remotely when we're not in school. That dynamic will be something that I think will be embraced broadly. Now, we've learned a lot just in a short period of time. Microsoft has been on the front lines from a digital platform with many, many school leaders and university leaders from the early days. And I can tell you from engagement and even our own telemetry, the early models were very translated from the existing school approaches. Students would log in, have maybe 6 or 7 hours of live video screens, in some cases wearing their school uniform so they can appear on camera, very similar to the old model. Very quickly, educators realized that not only does that not work pragmatically, partly because of the lack of availability of connectivity or devices at home to support a multi-child family, for example, but what we would rather do is create moments of connection connected to a wide variety of asynchronous collaboration and engagement from students, creating opportunities for students to work independently as well as within small groups, and then connect back to the group of a class. These models are becoming more not only active for students, but more engaging and immersive as they pursue learning. These are going to be great lessons that we can take into the blended learning model. Now, there are huge implications of COVID when schools reopen. How do we build connection to social distancing? How do we think about the use of space to keep students safe? And there's roles technology can play there. But the most important thing, I think, as we go forward is to recognize the things that make us human are now more valued than ever before. Technology can enhance that ability where we can blend options for schools. And we've got to listen and learn. We're going through a global transition, and there are best practices all across the world that we can learn from and share. As leaders continue to build strength and energy for the process ahead, there's tremendous uncertainty in the world. Fear, certainly human tragedy with regards to the implications of this disease. So it's more important than ever that we stay positive and really bring hope to what's possible. I'm excited about the lessons that we've seen because I do think that there's going to be some amazing change going forward. And as someone who's been working in the efforts to transform education for many, many years, I'm incredibly enthusiastic about what we've seen and the work going forward. There are not going to be issues that we won't face. There will be challenges and obstacles. But if this response to COVID has been any indication, I'm buoyed by the energy and the leadership that we've seen. And thank you for that work. It's truly inspiring.
Perfect that you described how the good digital transformation can look like, you know, because we know that we have many pillars that the digital transformation, as Rudo said, our GM, it's not only about the buying devices, you know, it's a really big mistake. It's about, you know, to have a holistic view on that. And could you tell us about this holistic view and what is the strategy for Microsoft for education?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Marcella. The reality is when we think about change, it may have been very common in the past to think about isolated decisions. What textbook we're going to use, what color we're going to paint the walls, how do we structure class schedule and curriculum, what technology do we acquire for various parts of the learning process. Today's world needs to be far more integrated and holistic, partly because the digital platform can connect to all of the things I mentioned, and that creates a data layer as well as an integration layer that we can pursue. And we've got to recognize that change happens collectively. So when we think about digital transformation, it includes everything from buildings to assessment to the devices and technology choices that you make, to the ways in which we build leadership across our school, train educators to think differently about pedagogy and different learning modalities. We embrace this in something called the Education Transformation Framework at Microsoft, which is a foundation that we use globally that has been vetted and refined by school leaders all around the world to reflect on the stages of change and the holistic change that's needed to apply to truly create sustained transformation. We have tools and resources to help school leaders work through the framework, questions that they can ask, evaluations that they can make of their existing schools and institutions, as well as tools to help with planning and process to guide along the journey, regardless of what technology decisions are being made, and regardless if technology is even part of the equation of transformation. So we definitely need to do a holistic approach. I completely agree with Rodolfo around the need that a device alone is not the answer. It's a part of an answer that is connected to much broader sets of questions. The thing that we've recognized throughout is, although we're embracing, and I've made this comment many, many times, digital transformation. That's true. We're transforming digitally in education, certainly in the world of work. But the thing that is often misunderstood is the foundation element of that transformation is people. And spend more time with your planning and your modeling on transformation, on understanding the implications on students, educators, and parents versus the time on building the technology estate. Unfortunately, that balance is not always the case. We often see most of the time and attention spent to the technology and very little time spent on the human side. Technology is getting smarter, better, faster, more affordable every day. And so we have to put our balance appropriately as we move forward.
Yeah, for sure. Anthony, now we can say that now we live the COVID times, yeah? That's our reality,
sure.
Globally. What is, from your perspective, or what is your view, what will be the critical momentum for next step after COVID times? What do we have to do after this post-mortem COVID times?
So I think, yeah, you're right. We're in sort of crisis response now. I think the next phase will be thinking through how do we take blended learning and remote learning and create a resilient technology response that can extend learning beyond the classroom. Gone are school closings and days off for weather, etc. Schools will have an ability to connect to students whether the buildings are open or not. And once that happens, which will be the next few months, we can start to actually propel what does anywhere, anytime learning truly look like? How do we stay engaged and connected to students throughout the year? How do we create a far more varied learning journey for individual students? How do we repivot the way in which we think about assessment, seat time, grade differentiation? There are many, many core fundamentals that we should start embracing once the rise of digital grows into schools. Our education system was modeled where learning resources were limited, educators were few, and so time was the construct that we built around. The schedule, the rigor around our school schedule, and we created a model where attendance was the first pillar and assessment was the second. And that became the machine of learning. Once we extend beyond the classroom, we know learning becomes far more varied, far more connected to individual learning paths. And time and learning materials become not a resource constraint, but an opportunity for us to extend learning possibilities. And that should trigger long-term thinking around what we assess and how we assess students' progress. How do we deliver mastery as the move for students versus grades, and time as the variable versus the fixed asset? And once we make those changes, I think we can create huge momentum for change and really connect to student potential. These changes will first start to happen in the higher education space, partly because of student tuition, the dynamics of workforce readiness. Students will pursue and institutions will embrace much more blended competency-based models for assessment. And I think those things will come down to the system over the next several years ahead, really prompted by the catalyst that has happened with COVID.
Thank you. We have, I have a question from our Microsoft Innovative Expert Educators. What is your message for them? Because there are really people with the passion and they are doing, I can say that the excellent job. Please tell them to Slovak me as your personal message.
So first off, I think it's not a surprise to many of you listening that the Microsoft Innovative Educators are my favorite people in the world. They inspire me to come to work every day, to really get excited about what's possible with technology. And I've had a chance to listen to tremendous, great examples from Microsoft MIEs throughout the world and what they're doing. It's truly amazing. So the first thing I would say is continue to share what you're doing. The world needs it now more than ever before because we're going through this globally and we're learning every day. I would say the early days of COVID response were certainly not as nuanced and mature as where we are now. And once we move into blended, innovation now explodes in terms of the possibilities on how do you structure your class, how do you create the kinds of amazing connections to students beyond school? How do you even structure a learning environment when students are not in the classroom, but I have a large group of students in classroom? There's going to be many, many different questions that educators will be faced over the next several months that they haven't been routinely engaged with. And so the idea for MIEs to step up, share their ideas and leadership is something that I think we're going to need now more than ever. And the other thing I will say is this is the time to throw away the fear and uncertainties we've had with regards to the negative implications that we have with technology's rise in schools, and instead put our focus on our people. This is all about helping students. It's all about celebrating the amazing things that educators do every single day. Technology is a tool for us to stay connected, to stay learning, but it's not a silver bullet. It's not something that is going to take over the world of education. It's always going to be about human potential. Yeah. It's going to be about creating that spark within learners, and educators do that. And we've got to thank them for it, celebrate their role, and certainly hope they can continue to propel us forward. And thank you, MIEs, for the work that you do.
Anthony, thank you. It's really my pleasure to have you here with us. I really wish you have a great day because it's morning for you in the US now. Enjoy a nice day. And for sure, we will share, the impact of this event, and we will share our stories with you. Thank you again.
Thank you so
have
much.
A great day.
Great to be here. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of EduDay.
Ciao, ciao. Have a nice day.